I have a 3.5 cubic feet Panda portable dryer, and the issue is it is not turning on. So the biggest obstacle here is just to find out what's wrong with the machine. I purchased this dryer about 4.5 years ago. About 2 years ago, I had to replace the blower belt, and now I'm going to investigate why the dryer is not turning on. These dryers are manufactured in China for a lot of companies like Panda, Black & Decker, Magic Chef, etc. If you see any videos or pictures of the inside of these machines, they pretty much look the same and have the same parts. So we're going to test 4 possibilities so we can narrow down the issue and see exactly what we need to replace. The on-off timer, the cycling thermostat, which measures the air inside the drum. There's a fuse in there we're going to check. And then lastly, the door on-off safety switch. The tools, an OHM meter, Phillips screwdriver, needle nose pliers, T15 hex screwdriver, power or manual screwdriver, or a combination of both. So the first thing we're going to test is the on-off timer and see if we have continuity, which will determine if the switch is good or bad. So here we're taking the little plastic piece off the screw and taking the screw out. Here it is from behind where you can see the wires. So we're going to take off the timer, and it's a little tough to get off. The upper gray wire is given the most resistance, and I'm just marking this down where to put the bottom wire for when I put back the timer. So we have the first wire is a gray wire, the second wire is a white wire, third wire is a double blue wire, and the last wire is the wire that we marked, and it's a single blue wire. And if you want to take the switch off, take these 3 screws off as well. And you can test this switch right here in the dryer if you want to, but I'm going to put it out on a table because I want a little bit more room to work. Make sure that it's off, and we're going to test, and we do not have continuity, which is what we want. Now we're testing it with the switch on, and we do have continuity, which is what we want. So this timer is good, and we're going to move on to the next possibility. One thing I like to do is just put the screws for certain parts in a plastic bag and then write on the bag what the screws are for. So the second thing we're going to test is the cycling thermostat. And in order to do that, we're going to take this back cover sheet metal off. And this process is pretty straightforward, as we're just removing the outer screws from the unit, as well as the white plastic part where the dryer outtake duct gets connected to. And there's also 2 hex screws on the bottom center, just outside the 3 screws that hold the drum in place. So here we have the inside of the dryer. So you can see it's accumulated quite a bit of dust. So we're just going to quickly vacuum out what we can reach. And we're just going to take these 2 leads off the cycling timer. This one lead is particularly hard to get off, so I'm taking it off with needle nose pliers, grabbing just above where it connects. You can also use a screwdriver to wedge it off. So again, we're going to take OHM meter and test for continuity. And we have continuity, so we're good to go with this piece, and we're moving on. So next, there's a fuse in the machine. This is a 3.5 cubic feet dryer, so it's going to have a 20 amp fuse, and it's going to be right below the drum here. So I already have it undone. This is what it looks like before you unscrew it, and then you just take the fuse out, put it in a place where you can see it. I have it against a white background, and this fuse is good. I'll show you how you can access it with the drum off as well and see it a little better in a minute or two. And then lastly, the door on-off safety switch. The first test is it should click when you put a screwdriver or anything else in it. And there's no clicking, which is a strong indication that this switch could be bad. And in order to get to this, we have to take the belts off and take out the drum. So here we have some sort of a sensor inside where the air blows out, attached to a gray wire that goes down into the circuit board, and we're going to have to take that out. If you have the 1.5 dryer, you won't have this. You can also take a quick look at the circuit board, make sure there's no discoloring, burning, anything disconnected. Set it to the side. We're going to take the blower belt off. It comes off pretty easily, as you can see here. Now we're going to take the drum belt off. And we're just going to sort of move it gently and just rotate it out. And then down below, you just take it around the drive shaft and then just gently pull it out. Then you remove the 6 screws holding the drum in, and then we just take the drum out. And set it aside, and take this opportunity to vacuum out the dryer more thoroughly. Since we have the drum out, we have a better look at the fuse. So you lift this tab out, unscrew it, take a look at it, see if it's good or not. We're putting it back in and putting the tab back down on it, securing it. This step is not necessary to fix the dryer, but I'm going to clean the air system blower. Undoing these 4 screws, taking out the plastic part, give it a quick vacuum. Take out all the lint that's been gathering for 4 years, vacuum that out. Put it back in, make sure the screws are lined up. Put in the plastic part, the 4 screws. Got a new filter we're going to put in. We're good to go. Next, we're going to remove that cover, which is what the drum sits on and rotates. And there are 8 screws we have to remove here. These 3 go to the heater, and the very bottom one goes to the door on-off safety switch. We're taking this cover off, and now we can see the safety switch, and we're going to remove these 2 wires, the yellow ground wire as well as the brown hot wire. Now we have our 2 leads on the switch, and we're testing it, and we have no continuity. So we've found our problem. The switch is bad, and we're going to go on eBay, find a new switch, order it, wait a few days, and voila, here's our new switch. And we're going to give it a quick test. Then we have continuity when the switch is active and no continuity when it's not active. And you'll notice it is clicking, which the old switch was no longer doing. So there's just 1 screw holding that in the front here. So we're going to pop that out real quick. And we're going to put in our new switch. Test for clicking. We're good to go. Shut the door. You can see it click. You don't have to do this, but just retesting it again and we're good to go. We have continuity, so we're hooking up the brown wire and the yellow ground. Also, while I was here, I took the heater off with the screw in the front here and then just vacuumed it out real quick and then reattached it. It's time to reassemble the unit. Put our tie back on. Putting the control panel back on the unit. So we're just unclipping this, giving us a little bit more play with the wires. And we're first taking the wire that we marked, which is the single blue wire, and putting it on the bottom. Next is the double blue wire. Then we take the white wire and insert it. And then finally the gray wire. We put our 2 buttons back on. Put it back into the control panel. And then put our 3 screws in, which is easier to go in the back of the unit. Now the second screw. And then we put the 3rd screw in, as you can see here from the back view. Now we put our switch in, and you notice there's some resistance, so this gray wire needs to come out so we can fit it in without that resistance. Put the the wire in and put the timer back in. Snap it into place. And then we reattach our gray wire. Screw it in, put our plastic tab back on, put the drum back in, put the belt over it. In the machine, and we want to make sure our belt goes into the machine. You have 3 screws on the top, 3 screws on the bottom. Now we put the belt back on by squeezing it together, bringing it through, and then putting it around the shaft and into the little groove there onto the bar. Then you put it on top and slowly move the drum around until it snaps into place. And there we go. You're just double checking up top to make sure it's even. Next, we're going to put the leads back on for our cycling thermostat. Put the gray wire back into the circuit board. Put our 2 ties back on. And now put the blower belt back on, wrap it around, and then just slowly turn the drum until it goes into place. We're going to plug it back in and test it. And here we go. And the belt is not rattling, so that's good. I did have a rattling problem. About 2 years ago, I needed to replace the old belt which had broke. If you need to remove the belt, it's pretty straightforward. Just remove these 4 screws, loop the belt around, put it into the little wheel, put the screws back in, and put your belt on. And you can also see there's a yellowish pad there that helps with noise reduction. This pad is almost always worn down from friction, and when I put the new belt on, it was rattling because that was all worn down. So what I did is I took an old piece of the belt and actually taped it to the drum, and this stopped the rattling noise. But keep in mind, this is going to create some friction. When I opened it up, I noticed it had fallen off because it was just taped on there. But I'm choosing to leave it off because it's no longer rattling. And if I can avoid the friction that's causing, I'm going to do that. So here you can see when the door is closed, it actually pops open a little bit more. So I'm going to investigate it a little further, taking it apart, and here you can see that it's actually broken into 2 pieces. So that's why it's not latching. And this may have led to the issue of the on-off switch not working. So we're going to order a replacement here on Panda's website, and under the parts, we're going to order the door latch. So we ordered a new one for $10.80, and a couple of days later, it showed up, and here it is. And it looks very similar. We're going to reinstall that and then test our door. And now our door closes firmly and does not open, so we're good to go with that. Now it's time to reassemble, screwing in our grooves, putting the white plastic part on the back. This Panda unit came with the hanging assembly pieces, which are 2 parts on the bottom. So I'm putting the bottom pieces back on and 2 parts on the top. And then this is a hook that gets hooked to the wall. Putting back the hex screws. Time for our exercise. I recommend doing this with 2 people because it's a bit awkward, but I did it myself. Putting our exhaust duct back on. I've tucked the cord behind the machine, which is visually more appealing. Checking if we have the proper clearance on our door, which we do. Turning it on. Testing our door latch. Turns off when you open it, closes firmly and turns back on. The other thing I did is got hose extensions for my washer because I didn't want to move it in and out every time I use it. And here's where you make the connection and then put the drain hook on the other side. On the right is the original drain hose that went into the sink. So you take this hose out of the drain hook and hook it to this side of the hose extender. On the other side of the hose is a gray piece that you actually cut off and then put this end through the drain hook, and then you can cut off any excess that's not needed. And my dryer is situated near a window, so I just vent it out the window and I put this shade up there when doing laundry. This is where the duck is stored when not using. The other thing I did is put this assembly on so I can hook up the washing machine and still have access to the water. And this was a bit of a puzzle, as this is actually 3 different pieces. A faucet divider valve, and then a valve adapter so I can put the washer hose onto it. And then for when it's not hooked up to the washing machine, I put this hose cap on it. And it's time to do laundry. And not only did we fix it, you get a real sense of accomplishment, which is an added bonus.